say.
Hi everyone, thanks for joining us at our PhD Virtual Information Sessions here on YouTube. This is the first of our PhD Virtual Information Sessions that we'll be running. My name is Aftanika and I work at the University of Manchester in the Faculty of Science and Engineering. And in today's session, we're going to talk a bit about how to apply for a PhD at our university. We're going to cover admissions, application process, and you also get some of your questions answered from current PhD researchers in a bit. If you'd like to scan the QR code that's coming on your screen, just start sending your questions in and we'll get them answered in a bit. But yeah, without any further ado, I'll hand over to Carlos and Olivia.
Thank you very much, Aptarnica. So I'm Dr. Carlos Avendaño. I'm the academic lead for recruitment and admissions of PGR at the Faculty of Science and Engineering. And the purpose of today is to give you an overview about what is to do a PhD at the University of Manchester, and also give you an overview about the structure of the faculty and some available scholarships, which probably is why you are here. So we're going to start with an introduction to the Faculty of Science and Engineering. Then I will discuss how to apply. Well, actually, Olivia will do it. We will discuss as well some funding opportunities to do a PhD at the University of Manchester, and then at the end we're going to have some Q&A to give you the opportunity to ask any questions that you would like. Okay, so why you are here? Maybe you are someone who likes to do problem solving. Maybe you are someone that is very curious about what is around you. Maybe you have demonstrated to have research potential during your undergraduate degree, or maybe during your master's. You might have very strong communication skills, and if that's you, you are probably in the right place. And it doesn't matter what is your gender, your ethnicity, your age, this might be for you. And we at Manchester, we like to give opportunities to everybody that wants to do a PhD with us. The Faculty of Science and Engineering is essentially divided in two schools, the School of Natural Science and the School of Engineering. Within the School of Natural Sciences, we have the departments of chemistry, Earth and Environmental Sciences, Physics and Astronomy, Mathematics and Materials. And within the School of Engineering, we have the Department of Chemical Engineering, Mechanical and Aerospace Engineering, Electrical and Electronic Engineering, Civil Engineering and Project Management, and the Department of Computer Science. Now, this is the way that we divide the faculty for disciplines, but in fact, most of the PhDs, sometimes they cross different departments or different schools. But this is just to give you an idea of how is the structure of the faculty. Okay, one of the things that you need to consider to do a PhD, at the end is going to be a commitment for the next 4 years of your life, so it's important commitment and you need to know what you are signing up for. The first thing is, what is the subject that you would like to explore during your PhD? It's extremely important to know what you want to do and what you want to do for research in the next 3 to 4 years. You need to feel passionate about that, so it's extremely important that you take the best decision that you can and that you talk to as many people about the different subjects and about what is a PhD about. Okay? How to choose the project? Well, there could be two different options. Either you see an advertised project where the idea is there and you select that particular project, or maybe, particularly you are a self-funded student, you might come with your own idea and you would like to propose it to an academic to see if that person will be able to supervise you. Okay? That comes to the next point. It's important to find who could be a good or potential supervisor for your project. And for that, I would highly recommend to go through the different websites of the academics in the different departments. Most of them will have information about what is the research area. You might want to see what are some of the publications that they have advertised, and from that to give you an idea of what is to work with that person. Okay? And important, it's to understand how to fund your PhD. I mean, the research costs money, and in some cases, you might have your own funding from your government or from a different source. But at Manchester, we also have several opportunities that you might want to explore to do a PhD. And I will talk about that in the next slides. Okay, so how to find a project? Most academics will advertise projects in findaphd.com. So I extremely recommend that you go there, try to search the different projects in findaphd.com for the University of Manchester, and particularly for our faculty. The other option, as I mentioned before, will be that you propose your own project, and for that you will need to do some initial contacts with potential supervisors to explore the idea of supervising your own project in that case. Okay, so I'm going to discuss some opportunities that we have at Manchester to do a PhD. So for this, we have different scholarships at different levels. So we have some scholarships at faculty level, and those are the ones I'm responsible for. But we also have some scholarships at the school and departmental levels, and other people will be in charge of that. But all of those projects will be still advertised in finalphd.com. So at faculty level, we have two scholarships in particular, the President's Scholarships and the Dean's Scholarships. These are scholarships that are for 3.5 years, fully funded tuition fee, and it will also cover 3.5 years of a stipend at UKRA level. That's approximately 21K per year. This is open to home and international students, so there is no issues in terms of nationality. We also have the PGRTA scholarship. This is also very similar to the President's and Dean's scholarship. However, this is only targeted for the home students or for students that do not require a visa to work in the UK. The idea of this scholarship is to do research, but simultaneously the candidates will get also some training on teaching opportunities, okay? And those opportunities will be set by the different departments according to their needs. We also have some opportunities for Chinese citizens. So the CSC has an agreement with the University of Manchester to cover 3.5 years of scholarships. CSC will pay the stipend of the students at Manchester, and the University of Manchester will cover 3.5 years of the tuition fees. At the school level, so we have similar scholarships. These are managed by the heads of research in the two different schools. These are for 3.5 years. Again, they cover all the tuition fees for 3.5 years, and the stipend is also similar to UKRA level of 21K approximately. But in this case, most of the scholarships are for home students, but there is also some opportunity for international students. All the details will be in the advertised projects in finalphd.com. As you know, some academics might also have some projects funded by industry or funded by the government, and in that case, they might have their own scholarships. So these are project-specific funding. They will be advertised in finalphd.com, and the different requirements for the candidates will be set in the details of that scholarship. But it could be in some cases open to international students. Some are only for home students, but please take a look at those details in the advertised project. Another opportunity are the Centers for Doctoral Training. So at Manchester, we have 7 Centers for Doctoral Training. We have 2 on materials. We have 3 on nuclear, and we have 2 on AI. So in these Centers for Doctoral Training, the students get specific training in these areas at the beginning of the PhD and during the PhD. They are fully funded for 4 years, and they also have a lot of interaction with industry. So it's a great opportunity to get training, but also to get contacts with industry for your future career. Finally, I would like to also mention that we have some collaborations with international institutions, and we have these dual awards. Particularly, we had the dual award with IIS Bangalore, with the University of Tokyo, University of Melbourne, University of Peking in China, and Tsinghua University. And in this case, the candidates will spend certain amount of time in Manchester and certain amount of time in the partner institution. So it is a great opportunity to go around the world, meet other people, share facilities, and do very exciting research. So thank you very much. So I will pass it now to Olivia, who is going to discuss how to apply for the PhD at the University of Manchester. Thank you, Olivia.
Hi everyone, I'm Olivia Mullally and I am the PGR Admissions and Recruitment Coordinator, and I'm going to briefly go through how to apply for a PhD here at the University of Manchester. So the first thing that you really need to consider is choosing your research area. So this is your first step where you identify a project or a research area that you're really passionate about. This could be something that you previously studied at undergraduate level or in your master's, or it could be something that you're just really interested in and you want to carry on. The second thing to do is then research a potential supervisor. So what we advise is try and find an academic that's got experience in the relevant area that you're interested in, and reach out to them to discuss your research area. So what we normally advise is send them an email and include your CV and maybe a research proposal or a supporting statement that briefly just introduces yourself and to discuss, potential opportunities. The next step, if you are interested in finding funding, which I think a lot of you will be, it is obvious that securing funding can be difficult in some situations. So we really recommend that you make sure that you start your search as soon as possible. In some cases, your supervisor might be able to help as well. So again, it's really important when you do reach out to them to mention that you are looking for funding opportunities. Once you've done those 3 steps, you now need to focus on writing a supporting statement. So please do check the department's websites for details on what you should include. But briefly, it's just a 1 to 2 page document where you document why you're interested in PhD, what motivates you, and why you think you'd be a good candidate for a PhD project. Once you've done that, you now need to submit an application online. So please do include as much information as you possibly can. We do on our website specify all the specific documents that you need, and this just allows the admissions team to assess your application quickly and refer it to the right supervisor or research group so there's no delays. And then once your application has been assessed by the admissions team, all students will be considered for an interview. And obviously for our funded places, this is very competitive. Going through how to complete your application form. So please ensure that you do name any potential supervisors that you've reached out to in your application form. So this is so that we know who to send your application off to, and it doesn't cause any further delays. When you are choosing your supervisor, please make sure that you're doing this carefully. As Carlos mentioned before, if you're applying for an advertised project, just make sure you include the supervisors that have been added to that advert on Find a PhD, and make sure if you are trying to propose your own research that you found a supervisor that actually their interests lie with your interests, or else they might reject your application. Again, please ensure that all the documents that we have requested on our website have been submitted with your application so that there's no further delays. It's not the end of the world if you don't have all the documents. For example, sometimes you might not have received your certificate yet. That's fine. Just ensure that you watch out for any emails that come from the admissions team so that we can prevent any delays. Another point to mention is that we will be reaching out to your referees as soon as your application has been submitted. So please make sure that you've approached the named referees so that they're aware that that email is coming to them. As Carlos previously mentioned, a lot of you probably will be applying for our funded opportunities. Please make sure that you indicate that you wish to be considered for funding in the application form. You can be quite generic. You can select University of Manchester scheme if you're not sure which funding scheme you want to be put forward for. That's completely fine. It's also really recommended to discuss any funded opportunities with your proposed supervisor. You don't know, sometimes they might have their own funding. For example, if they're an early careers researcher, they might have a grant that can fund a studentship. So it just maximises your opportunity for the funding opportunities that you might be put forward for. Please ensure that you do check all the application deadlines, especially if you're wanting to be put forward for various funding schemes, because depending on which scheme you're being put forward for, there will be different deadlines, and you don't want to be put at a disadvantaged position. So the nomination and selection process does vary depending on the funding source, but most of our funded scholarships will involve a panel interview, so that's something to be wary of. Make sure that you are ready for an interview. So you might be wondering what happens next then. So the admissions team will carry out an initial assessment. So this is when we look at your application form and all the documents and information that you have provided. Provided that you've given everything that we need to do that initial assessment, we will then send your application to the named supervisor for their academic consideration. Then you will be interviewed by the potential supervisor and an independent internal interviewer. If you are interested in funding, your academic supervisor can then nominate you for either faculty or departmental funding. And then all of our lucky shortlisted candidates will then be invited to another interview with an independent funding panel. And then obviously if you are successful then, details of your offer will be agreed with your potential supervisor and the senior academic reviewer, and then the admissions team will issue you with an offer and funding letter. Obviously, if you are fortunate enough to be self-funded, you'll skip steps 4, 5. You'll just go straight to step 6, where the admissions team will be in touch with your academic offer letter. Thank you for listening. I hope that was helpful. Obviously, if you have any further questions, you can put them in the Q&A chat via Slido, or you can also send us an email if you come up with some other questions after the webinar. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to Olivia for helping us with that part of the session and talking us through the admissions part of this presentation. We're going to dive straight into the questions. So our Slido is actually live. There is a link in the chat on YouTube as well. So please start sending your questions in, because I'm joined by Carlos again to just answer some of your questions that you have, some of your burning questions. So I've got them right now. I'm just going through them as well. One of the questions I can see is, what should I do if no one responds to my supervisor's inquiries? I've contacted 2 supervisors about studentships but haven't heard back.
This is a tricky one. I would suggest to persist a little bit. Academics are quite busy normally. They tend to do so many things at the same time, and sometimes they might have in the inbox several emails that they haven't been able to address. So please be persistent. But the other option is to also contact supervisors working in similar areas within the same department. Normally, for one topic, there might be a few academics that you could potentially contact and see if you can get a response.
Okay. Another one I can see is, how much time does it take for the university to come with the decision regarding fully funded projects? So what does that timeline look like?
It depends a lot on the particular project. So for example, if you're talking about a scholarship that is already awarded to an academic, probably the process will be short because the academic will need to interview a few candidates. And probably after a couple of weeks, they will be able to make a decision. The process for applying to the PhD might take a couple of weeks if all the documents are correct. And hopefully the academic will make a decision within a couple of weeks as well. However, if it's one of the competitive schemes, that could be a little bit longer. Normally there is a particular deadlines for the supervisors to submit the applications on behalf of the candidate. After that, there will be an interview process as well. And after the interview, the students will be communicated. But for the competitive schemes, I would say a couple of months probably will be reasonable.
That makes sense. Are there any that you see that stand out that you would like to answer?
Let me see. So is the stipend given by the scholarships enough to sustain current living costs, or is it a good idea to get a second part-time job? The PhD is a full-time activity, so I wouldn't recommend to have a second part-time job for that. I would say that for most of the students, the stipend is enough. Something that you need to consider is this stipend is at UK RA level, so it's about 21K per annum, but it's also tax-free. So the students live okay with that, and also most of the students will undertake some teaching activities, so they will take a GTA role that is also paid. So I wouldn't make it that as part of the secure income, but it is a good way during the semester to get an extra income for more expensive. But in general, yes, it should be enough.
Fair enough. Someone's asked, since scholarships and funding are quite competitive, what is your advice on making your application stand out? Does research or industrial experience help?
I mean, everything helps, but I will say is that it will make more impact if your profile fits well the project you're applying to. Because remember that for these competitive schemes, probably a supervisor will receive multiple emails from candidates, and at the end, the supervisor will have to choose the person that fits better to that particular project. So what I would suggest to make sure that when you read the project description, you probably make your CV or your email to reflect that particular project. It is very common that some students will send very generic emails to several academics, and many people are not going to take that very seriously. So the email really has to demonstrate that you have read the description of the project and that you have tried to fit your CV to that project.
Fair enough. Another question we've got is, before applying for a fully funded project, should we reach out to supervisors? And does the supervisor then tell you if you're suitable for the project or not?
Absolutely. I think that's the best way to do it. Again, for most competitive schemes, it's the supervisor who will nominate the students. So you need to have that first contact with the supervisor. Make sure that you are able to work with that person, that he or she will be happy to supervise you, and then that person will be able to submit a nomination on your behalf. But absolutely, it's imperative to contact the supervisor for one of these competitive schemes.
Definitely, yeah. So one thing to remember is that it needs to be like a mutual relationship with your supervisor.
Exactly.
It's not just the supervisor approving you. You kind of have to approve them as well, because like Carlos has mentioned, this is a long, full-time commitment doing a PhD. So that's one thing to make sure, like when you make that initial contact and you speak to your supervisor, just kind of like gauge from that conversation whether you can see yourself working with this person long time. It's very important. Another question we've got, that's a really good question. Is there any change in the application process if you're applying straight from your undergrad, like a BSc or a Bachelor of Engineering, rather than a master's degree? Is there any change?
It is, because one of the aspects that it is assessed for one of the competitive schemes is the potential to do research. And it's important that has to be demonstrated. And so you have undertaken any activities during the summer, or maybe some projects with supervisors during your bachelor's, probably it will be very good to try to demonstrate that. But it's important that you demonstrate to the supervisor the potential to do research in some way or other. Obviously, with a master's, you will always have to do a dissertation, so it's easy to demonstrate that. But for the bachelor's, it might be slightly different.
Yeah, fair enough. Another question we've got is, what is a supervisor expecting in an initial email or contact? Is there an expectation of submitting a project proposal?
It completely depends. If you are applying as a self-funded student and there is a particular topic that you would like to work, probably it's a good way to approach the supervisor to say, I'm interested in these topics, I have my funding maybe from my home country, or I'm interested in this particular research area. However, if you are applying for one of the competitive schemes and you are asking the supervisor to put a nomination on your behalf, you probably have to address in that email how is your fit or your skills to that particular project that you would like to work. So it completely depends on what is the situation.
True. Another question, someone's asked a question about the funding at admission interviews. So what are the likely questions that will be asked? So this person can prepare very well before the interview. Have you been on any panels for these interviews?
Yes, I normally am in most of the panels for the faculty. I will say that, I mean, a PhD is obviously a commitment. It's not an easy thing to do. It's very rewarding, but it's not easy, and there will be a lot of up and downs. And I think most of these interviews will demonstrate, or you should demonstrate, the resilience that you have to do a PhD. There is also an important component of being independent. So it's very unlikely that a supervisor will keep telling a student what to do every day. And the expectation is that most students will be able to work independently and demonstrate that. So some of these interviews will try to ensure that that's the case, to try to, recruit the best students for the job.
Fair enough. Another question. Thanks for all these questions, by the way. You can keep sending them through. We'll try and answer as many as we can. I'm just seeing any of the new ones. Can we pause or extend a PhD if needed?
Only if there are mitigated circumstances. It is possible, something that we tend to call internally a change of circumstances. But normally it has to be a reasonable circumstances to be able to apply to that. For example, if it's something for medical reasons, or I don't know, it will depend on a case by case basis. But yes, it is possible if it's necessary.
Fair enough. Okay. We've got a really good question piggybacking off the previous discussion about supervisors. What happens if I don't get along with my supervisor?
Things can happen. At the end, this is human relationships, and if we cannot control that. This is why it's extremely important that from the very beginning, both parts are very honest, and that the supervisor describes how is to work in his or her group, and you as well, that you feel that you can fit into that group. One advice that I can give you is, if you are discussing to work with a particular supervisor, maybe ask the supervisor to let you talk to the students that are already in the group, just to get a feeling if this is what you would like to do and you would like to work. And I think that will minimize the risk of having a crash later. So it is important that first contact and the discussions prior to applying for the PhD are there to ensure that.
Definitely, yeah. So like I said, it's very important to make sure that relationship is set from the start to avoid any hiccups happening later on. Another question we've got is, are PG, RTA roles or just GTA roles in general confirmed for all PhD programs?
I wouldn't say confirm, but everybody has the opportunities to do it. The only thing I would like to stress is GTA activities should be seen as training and not as a way of just getting income, okay? Because the main activity that you are coming to do is to do your PhD, and that will take a lot of time. It's good to be in discussion with your supervisor to ensure how many hours you can commit every week to be able to do that. But do not take a PhD simply to also do lots of GTA activities, because that will be detrimental for your PhD.
Yeah, it's very, very important to keep that work-life balance when you're doing a PhD as well. Speaking of, we do have some of our PhD researchers coming and joining us in about 15 minutes or half an hour, so make sure you stay around for that part of the talk as well, just because you can ask them directly and you can hear firsthand from people who are currently doing PhDs, just what it's like, what that work-life balance looks like. So yeah, stick around for that part. But yeah, just continuing with your questions, there are some really good ones, so thanks for sending all of these in. Another one we've got is there any requirement for published papers for someone who's looking to apply a PhD? Do you need to have published anything?
It depends as well. There could be the situation of a candidate that comes with 7 papers, but the contribution of that particular student to the papers is minimal.
True.
It's not about numbers, it's really about quality, and it's to demonstrate that you have that potential for research. There are some students that will never have a paper during the bachelor's or the master's, and still they are absolutely exceptional. So we don't make a decision just based on number of papers. We make the decision based on the potential and the fit of the candidate to the particular project. So yeah, it's not necessarily the main criteria that we consider.
Fair enough, yeah. So I think it's just like an aspect of the application overall. Yeah, it's not like the make or break of the application. Is there any preference to contacting supervisors, email versus LinkedIn? What insight do you have there?
I don't know. I think it will depend a lot on the academics. There are some people that are much better at email, some others that are much better at other type of social media. But the standard way to communicate with academic staff is by email.
Okay, that's a very good piece of advice there. just seeing any other ones. Do we get induction or training before we begin for those without previous lab experience looking to do a lab-based project?
Oh, absolutely. Nobody can enter the lab without having a training. I mean, it's one of the main things that we take extremely seriously is the safety of all the students and staff in the university. So everybody will have to have a particular training. There are different rules in terms of who can be in the lab, when someone can be alone in the lab. Normally students that start in the first year, they cannot be alone in the lab unless there has to be someone there always supervising that everything is done correctly.
Yeah.
And of course, as they demonstrate more competence on the job, they will be able to probably be for more hours alone in the lab and so on. But safety is going to be one of the paramount aspects that we will always consider in the PhD.
Fair enough, yeah. I feel like those labs, the labs at our campus, they're very like exclusive. So as someone who's not done a PhD and not a PGR, I think it's really cool when I see people like, tap in and get to go in. They've got that exclusive access. So that's one thing that's really cool about PGRs, who hopefully I'll be seeing some of you become PGRs as well. We will have access to those labs. And like Carlos says, you will get trained beforehand because they are like very specific on who gets to enter them. And I can say that from experience. I walk past them all the time. So yeah, you will definitely get that, like that training and stuff beforehand. I'm just going to see if there are any other ones that have come through. Also, we do have some staff who are answering questions in Slido itself. So even if when you've put a question out, if we don't manage to answer it live, it will be answered in Slido itself. I think you can see if there's like a comment icon on the screen, you can see the responses from our lovely admission staff who are working to answer your questions. I'm just trying to see if there are any that we haven't covered yet.
I mean, maybe I can answer one.
Yeah.
It's an interesting question. So what is your work-life balance looks like? Do you still got time to enjoy your life while doing the PhD? Of course, I mean, again, probably one way to see a PhD is that it is, obviously it's training, but you can take it as a job as well. So it is a lot of commitment. Again, as I mentioned before, the students have to demonstrate a lot of independence. But one of the amazing things of being at the university is having that social aspect of knowing other people, being in clubs, enjoying the city as well. If you haven't been in Manchester, I really recommend that you come to visit the city in itself. It's a very lively place, lots of things to do. If you like sports, if you like arts,
Yeah.
if you like music, I mean, this is the place for that. So there are a lot of chances to do it. And again, the PhD is sometimes, as a regular job, but at the same time, because it is demanding, there will be some days that you might need to work a little bit more, but probably next day you can take a couple of hours off.
Yeah.
Who knows? It's a little bit more flexible. So absolutely, I think one of the great things of the PhD is to enjoy life as well and to meet other people.
Okay. Just seeing the latest ones. Oh, this is a good one. How critical is the choice of country and origin when choosing a PhD? Does language barrier factor into acceptance?
So we don't make any distinction because of nationality. So in Manchester, we like to we ensure that everybody has the same opportunities. So
Yes.
It's about really the potential to do research and not about your nationality and so on. However, in that question, I mean, you were talking about language. Communication is important. So It's
Yeah.
important that you are able to communicate your science when, either in writing or speaking. So showing that proficiency in English is absolutely important.
Yeah, definitely.
So there's another one. Is it compulsory to reside in Manchester to do a PhD at the University of Manchester? Well, I would say yes. I mean, you need to work here. If you're doing experiments, you need to be in the lab all the time, and it's going to be very difficult if you don't live in Manchester. I don't know if by this question you mean residing far away from Manchester or just in a nearby place where you can commute every day.
Yeah.
But yes, I would say that it requires to be around. We don't offer at the moment any remote PhD, so we expect that everybody has to be present in the campus, okay? Particularly you're an international student, as part of your visa, we need to report that the students are always engaged in the PhD every day.
Yeah. So yeah, like from the PhD researchers I know, a lot of them do stay in Manchester. There might be some who commute, like us, a lot of our staff in general, or even our undergrad students and master students, they do commute from slightly outside of Manchester or Greater Manchester. Obviously, I think you can argue further away you go, like, you can get cheaper rent in some places. So it is more ideal, but in terms of financial, requirements, but obviously in Manchester would be the best, especially if you need to access the labs very frequently. But we do have some some accommodation that we have available for PGRs, but it is very sparse. So most of our PGRs do end up going with their own accommodation, their own rented accommodation privately. But yeah, we've got a lot of support there as well in terms of private renting. So when it comes to accommodation, there are a lot of options here in Manchester and slightly outside if you do want to commute. Just seeing if there are any other ones that have come through. Some funded projects say that international students have to pay the difference. Can you elaborate on that?
So that's not very common. So most of the funded projects that we have are either for home students or for international and home students. Yeah. And it completely depends on the different schemes. For example, the PDS, DDS, and PGRTA, they are, the PDS and DDS are open to any nationality, so there is no issues on that. However, there are some particular schemes, for example, in the departments or in the schools, that they will be targeted only for the for home students, okay? There might be a few fee waivers from time to time, but we cannot guarantee that. Now, when a supervisor is the one that has a project and it is only for home students, there might be the chance to be able to see if that possibility could be applicable. However, we don't have it by default. It will have to be discussed on a case-by-case basis.
Fair enough. That's very useful. So yeah, we've got some really good questions coming through. Someone had asked a question about the dual award PhD programs. So I don't know if you were there at the start of the session, but we did cover a dual award PhD and a joint award PhD. They're essentially PhDs that you do across 2 countries. And the person has asked, do we need to be fluent in Japanese or Chinese for the joint program with the University of Tokyo or University of Tsinghua? Or is that an adding point? I think you're asking if it's like a benefit or, it makes your application better. We are going to delve into this tomorrow. We have another session specifically on the dual award program, so please tune into that one because we'll have an expert who actually works in that department and looks at all the applications, so that will be really useful to you. But I'd argue I don't think knowing the language is necessarily going to benefit or make your application less or better. I think it definitely is. I think you should treat it as any other PhD application or when you're planning to become a PGR. I think it would be a nice benefit to have, but I don't think that would make or break your application. Again, it's just one small aspect. You need to consider everything, and they are one of our most very popular programs, and we get a lot of applications. So yeah, we wouldn't necessarily choose on who knows Japanese or Chinese, and I'm pretty sure all the instruction happens in English itself at these universities, so you wouldn't necessarily need it. You could probably do it in your own time. If you are successful in the program, you can learn it on the side as well. But yeah, make sure you join tomorrow's session because we'll definitely be delving into that a bit more. Just going back to the questions, we've got so many coming through, so thank you for that. Just seeing any other key ones that have come through. Someone's asked, what is the expectation for CDT training? I As in, I think, how would the CET training work? Because I'm pretty sure like a lot of them are in cohorts, so there's quite a few people. So is it like the training works in that setting as well? So there's multiple people?
Yeah, I think depends on the particular CDTs.
Yeah.
But the CDTs will start, a few of them will start with a thought component at the beginning to make sure that that's, everybody gets the same sort of training from the beginning and they understand the main concepts. Some other CDTs might have training, along the PhD at different stages. But yes, the CDT, one of the main components is that particular training in this subject area that they want to study.
Fair enough. Someone has asked, does the scholarship cover accommodation, like the stipend, I'm assuming?
No, that's something that students independently will need to sort out.
Fair enough. How does the department, I guess, or the faculty in this case, navigate between traditional ways or methods of research and more critical or radical frameworks? That's a very good question.
I think it's how different academics evolve in different areas. Okay, so I've been at the university for 12 years, and obviously I have seen a massive change in the way that my research area has changed, particularly with AI and supercomputing, which is what I do. But I think the university is a very, dynamic place, and normally we get new staff all the time that always come with new ideas, and there is a lot of collaborations and so on. We are always investing. And this is one of the main things with the scholarships. This is an investment for us because we are trying to attract the best, candidates or students that we can to perform very high quality research. So when we discuss scholarships, it's an investment that the university is making to do that, okay? Yeah. So we're investing in you, we're investing on the research that you can carry with your supervisors. So it is a very dynamic place. We are investing a lot of state-of-the-art facilities. Hopefully you can come as well to Manchester to see that. But we have absolutely amazing facilities that no other universities have.
Very good. Just having a look at the other ones. So someone's asked, I have a specific area I wish to focus my research on, which is using AI for autonomous cyber defense. Wow, that's cool. How would I explore PhD opportunities in this field? So I guess this is a good question for anyone in general. Where do they start looking for PhD opportunities in a very specific field?
Yeah, all academics should have their particular areas of research in their websites. And it is a little bit of time investment, but I would suggest to go through the department of different departments, in this particular case probably computer science, and try to find what is the research of every academic and try to make a list and try to start making contact with them. But it will take a little bit of time. Again, potentially you can find some specific projects in findaphd.com, which I encourage everybody to look at. But if you cannot find any specific project that you would like to do, try to go first through the academic websites and try to find who is the most suitable person for that.
Definitely. Yeah, I would say I find it funny how for PGRs, I think you have to do research in the process of the application as well. A different kind of research where you do have to research a lot to find the right project, the right academic. I would say we have a site called Research Explorer, so that's where all our academics are listed. Even our PGRs are listed on there. But what you should do if you can't find an advertised project and you want to really research at our university, or you want to discover what our academics are researching, you can go on our Research Explorer and maybe type the research area that you're looking at. You'll see the academics listed. Some of them will write accepting PhD students, so that's the key text you have to look for under each supervisor's name, and then you can go see what projects are advertised. And if they're not advertising, you could maybe submit a project proposal or just get in touch and be like, I'm really interested in doing this kind of research. Are there any opportunities? So yeah, that is a very good question. So thank you for asking that. Just seeing, there are some really good ones coming through. Someone's asked for international PhD students with dependents. Are there any additional considerations we should plan for during admission?
Not from the admissions point of view, because we only consider the candidate. But of course, you probably will have to consider what are your personal circumstances. And there will be, depending on several aspects, there could be things to consider like the cost of the visa, cost of accommodation, and so on. But in terms of the scholarship, we don't make any difference if someone brings dependents or not.
Fair enough. Another person has asked, are there statistics for previous years? So we won't have the exact numbers, but on enrolled students, applications submitted, accepted, their exam results. I guess they're kind of asking like, I think the main part of this question is like what kind of exam results they have. So, I don't know, it's quite a vast question.
It is a really generic question and difficult to give a statistics on that. The only thing that I can say is that we have minimum requirements to enter into the PhD.
Yes.
That essentially is a 2-1 or equivalent. And as soon as someone has that requirement and all the other documents, everybody should be able to be accepted into the program. It's different to be able to get one of the scholarships because those are competitive and you are competing with other candidates for that.
Yeah.
Okay, but in terms of the application process, there are some minimum requirements, and as soon as you are above those minimum requirements, okay, or equal or above, everything should be fine.
Fair enough. Another question I saw that was interesting is someone said they've submitted an application but didn't get a chance to speak to the supervisor. Should I attempt to contact them now? Does this happen? Do you see people who apply without contacting?
Yes, but this is a difficult case because when the doctoral academy who is managing all the applications, after they look at the paperwork, one of the important things is that they will need to contact the potential supervisor. So if that's not stated in the application, it's going to be impossible to contact someone. This is why it's important to try to make always a contact with a supervisor. And once that you know that you will be able to work with that person and you've been accepted into the group, submit the application. But I wouldn't suggest to simply apply to the PhD without having a first contact with someone that could supervise you.
Fair enough, so that contact with the supervisor is key, regardless of what PhD you're looking at. A lot of questions about working in a group. Do PhDs involve group projects?
Yes, some of them. I mean, again, there is a lot of, every single PhD project is independent and is for the particular candidate. But in science, collaboration is important, and then there could be a project that depends on the projects of several other people, or that they are working in similar areas, or more importantly, complementary areas. Maybe that you are doing a particular modeling project, and you want to work with experimentalists to test that the theory is correct, or maybe you are supporting the experimentalists with your theoretical work. So it completely depends on the particular academic. There are some academics that like to work with other academics in equal proportion, so that the student, when gets into that group, is going to be working with several people and not just with one single person. Okay, so again, but it depends completely on the particular academics.
Fair enough. Yeah, there's a lot of scope there for group work, potentially. Again, it depends on the project. Another really good question, which I will make sure our PhD researchers who join us later will answer as well. With the teaching alongside a PhD, so I guess the GDA role, how does this work? Is it full lectures given, or more so are you an assistant role?
It is an assistant role, so we don't ask the students to deliver lectures in front of a large class or things like that. It's mostly support on marking, or probably being in the labs, try to help the students to do experiments, maybe setting up a particular quiz or something like that, but it's more like a support. A lot of the students tend to go to the tutorials and then just sit with the students to try to help them with some of the problems. But it's more assistance rather than delivering full, formal teaching.
Fair enough. Someone's asked a really interesting question. What is the gender equality like in STEM fields in the UK? So this is a very valid question, I would say. I don't have the exact stats, but obviously it is something that universities in general in the UK are definitely trying to work on. I know for a fact that our university is putting in a lot of effort. We have something called the Athena Swan Charter, which a lot of universities abide by and are trying to work towards, improving that equality in STEM fields particularly. I can say as someone who works in marketing, we do a lot of stuff for that Athena Swan Charter to make sure our marketing, is very it's fair and, you know, it's welcoming to people of all different gender identities into postgraduate research. So yeah, what I can say to that is there's definitely a lot of work that needs to be done. I could say that as someone who works at the university myself. Yeah.
I just saw a question coming through. I have 10 years worth of work experience in the field. I wish to do research on, but I don't have the minimum academic requirements. Can I still do a PhD? The answer is yes. So if you demonstrate that you have enough experience in a particular topic that will, you know, make up for the not having the minimum requirements, potentially there is opportunity to do a PhD. However, the process is not as straightforward. There will be several people that might need to be involved in making the decision, not only the supervisor, but it is possible. So I will still encourage you to try to apply for this.
Very good. Yeah, I would say that's why I feel like PGR is such an elite form of, you know, higher education, because, you know, it is so welcoming, and even if you don't meet the minimum academic requirements, there might be scope if you do have the experience, it can make up for that. So yeah, on that note, someone has asked, how do I decide if a PhD is the right step for me?
It is a very personal, you know, decision. However, my experience is the PhD is a very rewarding activity. So you gain a lot of experience. You make an incredible network of people as well. You focus in a particular project, but on top of that, you get specific training. And it is true that not many people that do a PhD will end up in academia. Actually, it's a very small proportion that people end up in academia. Most people will go into the private sector. And sometimes to work in areas that are probably not completely related to what you did in the PhD. However, the PhD journey will give you different skills of problem solving, how to be able to communicate science, how to communicate a particular problem, how do you set a methodology, okay? So what we tend to call the scientific method. So the PhD gives you more than just learning one topic. It gives you skills to be able to you know, be able to face the private sector and hopefully to get very good opportunities in the future. So my experience is a great opportunity, but I'm not going to lie, you need to demonstrate a lot of resilience. It's going to be a lot of up and downs, and you cannot give up easily if you want to do a PhD.
Fair enough. So I think that's definitely something you need to ask yourself, to be honest. Like, it's a lot of introspection that needs to be done there to decide whether it's for you.
Yeah. But if I can add, discuss that with the student ambassadors. I think it's important to be able to do that, because they can give you a different experience than academics as well.
100%, yeah. I'm just seeing if there are any questions before we bring the current postgraduate researchers on to answer some questions. Just seeing. Someone's asked, how competitive is scholarship applications for our scholarship applications for international students? Does it have 30% international studentship limit, similar to other universities?
No, I think you are discussing different schemes. So for the PDS and DDS, we don't make any distinctions in terms of nationality. So everybody has equal opportunity.
Fair enough.
There is some particular funding that might come from UKRA. And normally that's targeted for home students, but sometimes there is a small allowance of 30% for international waivers. But that it's a process that has to be taken internally, okay? But for the PDS, DDS, and for this particular year, the bicentenary scholarships, there is no restriction in terms of the nationality.
Fair enough. So I think we've answered a lot of questions here with Carlos. So thank you, Carlos, for joining us for that section of this session. Before we move forward, we are going to bring on 3 of our lovely postgraduate researchers who are researching with us currently. We've got someone from the Department of Chemistry, Earth and Environmental Sciences, and Mechanical Engineering. I think, hopefully I'm right. They're going to join us in a couple of minutes. We're just going to play a short video on tips for applying for a PhD while we get them set up with the mics and everything. But we'll be back in around 4 or 5 minutes. So don't go anywhere. Stick around. They're going to answer any of your questions about what it's like to do a PhD. Essentially, you get that first-hand, experience from them. So yeah, just stick around, and we'll be right back.
I think for me it was my curiosity in the topic, and also it was quite a new and niche topic, and obviously when I had those questions I was Googling the answers to them and I couldn't really find an answer that was really convincing. You really get a lot, like just better and valuable insights from a PhD than you would from just Googling something on the internet. So it was my curiosity that led me down this path, I would say.
I know that a lot of people are searching for things that they know they like and they know that they will like doing. Having done materials here, I knew approximately what area I want to go into, but not exactly what I want to do in my life, and I thought that, okay, maybe a PhD is going to help me narrow down what I want to do.
A lot of the supervisors, although you're sending an email, they might not see it, but sometimes they're very busy because obviously we're producing a very high level research output. So you pretty much just send again, and eventually you get them to reply to you and arrange a meeting and so on. And from there, you can then pretty much understanding what the supervisor's doing and how their lab works, especially. So the culture of the lab and whenever that suits you or not.
But I know people who weren't quite sure about what they wanted to do, and the supervisors really help you frame your research. So it's okay if you don't exactly know what you want to do from this beginning, because your supervisors will basically help you shape your research and frame, your research questions and stuff. So it's nothing to worry about, I think, if people don't know exactly what they want to do.
Honestly speaking, I thought it was very different. It's the fact that you have a lot of independent study time, which is something that I wasn't expected. I thought it would be more of a role where you will be supervising by your supervisor, teaching you some course material, teaching you some basic skill and so on. But the truth is, in reality, it's more which you have so much freedom that you'll be learning a lot of things, and it's down to you to decide to knowing and to trying to learn and so on.
My favorite thing about being a postgrad researcher and living in Manchester and being at Manchester Uni is 24/7 access to a lot of the buildings. I just like the freedom that we get here to use the facilities and just like do research at a time that's comfortable for us, and not just like stick 9 to 5 hours, but we can do longer days, and it's so flexible. I really like the flexibility of it.
I went to Palermo, which is in Sicily, in Italy, and it was amazing. Yeah, the conference was really good. I met a lot of nice people there. Then obviously after the conference I got to go and explore Palermo, which was really nice. The food was amazing, weather was amazing, and I was just like, how do I get to do this as part of my PhD? I was just like, I was not expecting that.
It's definitely be resilient. That is the number one advice. And knowing that, it's okay to have the failure, but you also need to understand your worth and how much work you have done so far.
I would say just if you're interested in it, but you're not 100% sure if it is for you, just contact a few people at Manchester, whether it's the lecturers or just the students, and get an idea what it's actually like to do a PhD, because I would say there's a lot of misconceptions about what life as a PhD student is like, and it's very different to that. So I would just say get first-hand insights from someone who is doing it, or someone who is supervising PhD students, to get an idea what it's actually like to do a PhD, instead of relying on the misconceptions about it.
Hi everyone, so thanks again for coming back after that 4-minute video. We are joined currently by our three current PGR students, so our current postgraduate researchers here at University of Manchester. So without further ado, I'd like them to introduce themselves. So Rahul, why don't you go first?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Rahul. I'm finally a PhD student in the Department of Earth and Environmental Sciences. My PhD is in volcanic petrology. So I study the chemistry and textures of special volcano-derived rocks from central Iceland to understand what's going on beneath a volcano.
Hi, I'm Medina. I'm a second-year PhD student in inorganic chemistry, and my PhD is essentially looking at the F block, which is the bottom block in the periodic table, and we do reactivity studies to see what fundamental bondings there are.
Hi, I'm Victoria. I'm a PhD student in Mechanical and Aerospace Engineering, and I'm a second year, and my PhD is on net zero manufacturing. So we're looking at manufacturing companies' life cycle from beginning to end and know the amounts of greenhouse gas emissions and to curb it.
Amazing, thank you. I didn't understand any of that because I am not in science engineering, but hopefully you guys did, if that's your research area as well. It depends. So without any further ado, you can start sending your questions in for our PGRs here. We've got some already, some really good ones, but they're going to tell you their own personal experience and their own lived, experience of what it's like. So that's might be really valuable to you guys because it's coming straight from people who have actually taken that step of doing a PhD. So let's start off with, there's really good ones. I don't know where to start. Okay, there's one, how do you balance work with personal activities? So the balance of work and social life, how does it go?
So for me, when I balance my, work, because I call my PhD my work sometimes, is that for me, because we have health and safety regulations, I'm in the lab from essentially 9 to 5. So it helps me with when I have something to do in my personal life, I do that essentially after 5 because there's that physical barrier where I'm going home past 5, which is usually it. Yeah.
So I have a more flexible PhD. I don't really have to work 9 to 5. I choose my own working hours for most days. I make sure I do something over the weekends. I also spend my weekends doing going out on walks and hikes and stuff. Even in the evenings, irrespective of whether I'm working 9 to 5, I plan something or the other. I go out with friends and stuff. So I think it depends on what sort of a work style you have, your project requirements and things like that. But then as long as you're good at managing your work and your time, it's pretty easy to have a good work-life balance.
I would agree with him because my PhD is also the same. So it just depends on you. You're the one managing your time. Mine is quite flexible, so it's not like a 9 to 5, but you're managing your time. Nobody is telling you what to do. So you have to manage it yourself and know how to balance the both of them. Yeah.
So yeah, I guess you could say it's definitely, again, it depends. That's going to be our answer to everything that you guys ask. But it definitely does depend on your PhD and on your ability to balance, work and life. A lot of people do it. A lot of people are currently doing PhDs. All people have done their PhD. So it's not fully impossible. It's just like whether you're up for that commitment. That's for you to decide before you, dive straight in. It's not for everyone. There are some people who might say, I can't balance that, and they don't end up doing a PhD. But it's whether it's up for you or not. That's something that you can think about. Another question we've got is about the application process, so about how you got into the PhD, like how you started a PGR. So someone's asked, I would like to know how they handle difficulties in the application process so I can be prepared. So someone is, trying to be prepared for any difficulty. So do you have anything about your application process?
Well, there wasn't any difficulty per se with the application, but for me it was more about the visa and the other processes that takes place. Given that I'm an international student, I had to first fill out a bunch of paperwork and stuff. I had to get these CAS numbers and other stuff from the university, and then had to wait for a really long time to hear back from the British embassy about my visa and stuff. It was a bit challenging given that I couldn't personally talk to my supervisor or others on how to rectify it. But then there was definitely support from the university as well. Once I highlighted this to the department PGR head, they were quite useful and they were quite helpful in putting him in touch with the right people, and I'm here, so yeah.
That worked out. Would you say, did the A tests have an issue for you? Was it?
Yeah, so in my case it was a bit complicated. Initially there was confusion in the university and I was told I need an A-TAS and I was waiting for a really long time.
Yeah.
But then it turns out I don't need an A-TAS at all.
Okay.
So I just had to change my program code and few other things, and didn't end up getting an A-TAS. Didn't require an A-TAS.
Yeah.
But then I know a lot of people, few friends of mine who had issues with A-TAS, and their PhD was also delayed by a couple of months. In some cases, they were here in January.
Oh, wow.
In other cases, their funding was also sort of extended, or
Yeah.
like postponed and they were here in April.
Yeah.
So while it might be a bit challenging and it's definitely a lot of mental stress,
Yeah.
but then it doesn't really affect your PhD. You're given enough time to finish your PhD in whatever, whether it's 3.5 or 4 years.
Yeah, I think it definitely is like a struggle. Like I guess working from the marketing and admissions side as well, there are a lot of delays with ATAS. It's very common, but we do have a lot of students from countries and they've managed to get past that hurdle. So it's just something to be prepared for, that there will be hurdles there. But yeah, do you have anything to add, Medina?
Yeah, so mine was pretty smooth, but I would say this is less to do with the application process, and I guess more to do with me is that I think I had trouble essentially upselling myself, so talking about myself and showing the skills that I had. So I had a postdoc in my group take a look at my CV and was like, oh, you can talk about this, you can talk about that. But because I hadn't had experience doing that and talking about the skills that I have, I found that part a bit harder.
That's a really good point. I would say it's similar to like when people go into job interviews, you need to be able to, talk yourself up. And, I know some people find that annoying. They think they come across as like stubborn or like, narcissistic or something. But don't worry, you don't come across as that at all. Just really, give yourself a pat on the back in that interview, own it, because you're great at what you do and the research. So it's just kind of like making sure you have that in your mind. So I'm just going through the question. We got really so many good ones. This is a good one about social life. As someone who will be moving to Manchester to do a PhD, do you get opportunities to engage with other students or make friends? So how does it look like? Because obviously we talk a lot about PGRs being like working in a solo environment, not necessarily meeting people. It's very different undergrad and master's life. But yeah, Victoria, why don't you talk about it?
Yeah, I think as a PGR, as I said, your time is flexible. So you're not just on your laptop.
Yeah.
You have opportunity to join other things, join different organizations, join different groups, and explore the university, explore different activities and get involved. There are so many activities in the school organized to meet people here, and so it's good to participate as much as you can.
I think I had a bit of an unfair advantage because I have family up here as well. So I was able to like make friends through my family and everything. But in terms of the PhD itself, I think we have in my section of chemistry, we have something called Friday Forum, where essentially people, postdocs, PhDs alike, will present their research, and that's an opportunity, because it happens every Friday. That's an opportunity to talk to other people. And I guess the uni does do a few things where they have like coffee mornings that you can go to, that you can interact with people.
Yeah, so in addition to these coffee mornings, there are also clubs and societies within the university. While they are mostly catered to the undergraduates, some of them have PGR or postgraduate research specific events as well. And then, there are also a lot of activities in central Manchester. So in the evenings, you could always go join a dance class, do some pottery, learn some music.
Yeah.
Or, Manchester is also situated between like a lot of beaches and hills and stuff, so everything's just a train ride away. Get a rail card and then you're sorted.
Yeah, there definitely is a lot to do. We could talk about hours about Manchester. Like we've all been here quite a while. I came here in 2018 from another country myself, and now it's kind of like my home. And there's a lot to do in Manchester. I guess when it comes to social life as a PGR, you have to do that. You need an additional push to kind of go out and make friends. It's not as to be fair, even undergrad level, it's not necessarily that easy, but you do need a little bit of a push to get there. Someone's asked, are you all full-time researchers? I think yes is the answer. Yeah, they're all nodding. So yes, they're all full-time researchers. One very interesting question that could go many ways. Someone's asked, can you travel whilst doing a PhD? So I don't know if they mean in terms of like conferences or what. Have you traveled a lot as part of your PhD? Have you attended many conferences?
Okay, I haven't traveled so much, but then I make it a point to have at least one conference a year, sometimes if I'm lucky, 2 conferences. So as part of my PhD, I've traveled to maybe 4 conferences. And then Amazing. Since I'm from geology, I also have fieldwork. So I've been to Iceland once for 10 days to do my fieldwork. But other than that, I do a lot of traveling on my own.
Yes.
I get my Schengen visa.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, every now and then I do weekend trips to some cheap destination in the EU. And then I have a rail card, so I travel to multiple places within the UK, which is quite affordable as well. So yeah, if you plan well, if you like traveling, there's a lot of opportunities to do that.
Yeah, Marina, have you been to any conferences?
Okay, now I'm jealous. Most of the conferences that I've been to are actually in Manchester, so there's not really much travel involved.
Oh.
I'm inspired, so I'm looking to go, I guess, maybe not even internationally, but go to more conferences that are just not in Manchester.
Yeah, fair enough. Victoria, have you been on any conferences?
No, but I'm hoping to go to some soon.
Fair enough. Yeah, that's a very good question. I would say, just to clarify, I don't think you can like go on holidays when you're meant to be researching. Just so you know, you are legally required to be in the UK and research. But obviously, if you take leave and like go on holidays, that's fine. So many good questions. Right, let's talk interviews. So, did you all go through the admissions interview and funding interview? Yes and no. Okay, so let's just talk about interviews in general. So, someone's asked, how did you prepare for the faculty panel interview, and what surprised you about it? Do you have any tips?
Yes, I did a presentation that I used as a guide to help me through it. There wasn't that much that was surprising, in all honesty. It was kind of very much standard interview questions. So I guess like why the University of Manchester? And I guess tips would be to just talk about why you actually want to come here. So you want to demonstrate passion, and if there's a certain bit of kit that's at Manchester that's not really anywhere else, then talk about that. And yeah.
Okay, so I applied for the Dean's Doctoral Scholarship, which is one of the faculty funding, where you would have, at least when I applied, there were 9 people on the panel, 1 representative from each of the departments. So it was a little weird because nobody in the panel really understood what I was working on. I spoke to a few people who had applied for the same funding before, so I had an idea on what I should expect. But then it was quite bizarre because I got quite mixed review from the panel. Some people were quite excited about what I was working on. Others were so confused about what I was working on. So I think you should prepare yourself for both an expert panel as well as a non-expert panel. In the expert panel, you can talk about your things in detail, but in a non-expert panel, you need to find that one thing which can, inspire or sort of convince anyone who doesn't understand what you're working on. So if you got both of these covered, I think you should do very well in an interview.
Nice. Victoria, did you have any interviews?
Yeah, I think mine was similar to hers because I had to do a presentation, so I had to prepare my slides and then present it during the interview, and then got asked questions. And yeah, just do your research and then go with the flow. And that thing is to try to ask questions too. It's not just being asked, also try to ask your interviewers and then get answers from them.
Nice, yeah. So that's some really good advice on the interviews. We've got like question with loads of thumbs up. By the way, in Slido, you can give like thumbs up reactions if you want us to answer certain questions because they move up on my screen, so I see them first. So one that's got 3 thumbs up is, could you please share your experience with a fully funded PhD opportunity and how funding supports students during their PhD life? So I'm assuming this is to do like with the stipend and how you manage the finances, but yeah, what thoughts do you have there?
Yeah, so I have the UKRI stipend, so it essentially covers all my living costs, like it fully does. I'd say I do GTA on the side, which makes me a bit of money. I think it's been okay doing a fully funded one. I think I wouldn't be doing a PhD if it wasn't funded because I think I'd need to be paid to do school, especially after my undergrad student loans.
Oh, fair enough.
Yeah.
I don't think I have anything more to add.
Valid. Okay, true. That's fine. That's a good point. Just seeing if there are any other questions. Okay, that's a good one here. How intense can a PhD get? With like study life balance kind of vibe. But yeah, do you feel it gets intense? What moments do you think the PhD gets intense?
So I think it does get intense because you'll have quite a few deadlines. So in my section, we do posters, we do presentations, and I think as someone who's not the best speaker, it tends to stress me out quite a bit. I think also when reactions don't work, it gets it gets a bit annoying, and you kind of have to essentially pull yourself out. I would say having a solid support group is very helpful because they can kind of get you to step outside of your PhD, because a lot of the time you need to, because you get very, I guess, tunnel visioned on your project. So taking a step back is very, very useful.
Yeah. Yeah, there are several deadlines in your PhD as well. So at the end of every year, we have a progression review where we write a report, give a presentation, and we are examined by an internal examiner who is an academic within the department. So right before the progressions, things get quite hectic because you have to, work on those, get everything done in a really short time. Similarly, the summers are usually for holidays, conferences, and field work, so it's not quite hectic during the summer. And then again, the new semester starts, your supervisors get busy with teaching and other stuff, so you don't get to meet them quite often. So things become a little hectic and haphazard during that time. But then, because PhD is usually you set your own pace during the entire course of your PhD, so it matters. So you decide when things are going to be hectic and stuff like that.
Fair enough.
Anything more?
Yeah, I agree with you. I just agree with you. There are deadlines to meet and there are things to do. So it's kind of ups and downs. There are good parts, there are bad parts. It won't always be tough. It won't always be smooth. So just be prepared for anything that comes. Yeah.
Fair enough. Are you, Victoria, are you also an international student?
Yeah.
Yes. So we got one for you and Rahul, which is a PhD being a long program, 3 to 4 years at least. What should an international candidate expect apart from academic commitments? So how has that experience been? When did you come to Manchester and what was it like?
So I moved to Manchester last year,
Lovely.
January. Yeah, it was okay. One of the shocks was the weather because Manchester is really cold and it was January period. So
Yeah.
So that was one of the experience. But in terms of doing a PhD, I think it's similar since it's the same academia that I'm doing. So it's similar to what I've been doing at home, but in terms of the cultural shock and some other things, I'm trying to adjust to them and stuff like that. So yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. So you've come here very recently, and Rahul, you've been here a while now. So what stories can you tell us from being here so long?
Yeah, so I came to the UK in September 2022. That was 3.5 years ago, I guess. Wow. Yeah. It was a bit of a shock. Yeah, weather was definitely a shock. Coming from a very tropical part of India, I wasn't very used to the cold weather here. But it wasn't a big deal, to be honest. Spending time with others, I got to know how to layer up or keep myself warm and stuff like that. So it wasn't a big deal. Thankfully, being someone from the Indian subcontinent, it wasn't a big deal in the UK as well. We've got a big diaspora community here. UK is quite welcoming as well, so I didn't feel out of place. It was initially a bit of a shocker when there were very few people around me. Given that I come from India, there's always people around, so that was a bit of a shocker. But other than that, it was a smooth transition. You get everything that you need in terms of groceries and whatnot. Whatever I need from India, I usually have it here as well. So it's not been too difficult for me.
Amazing. Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest selling points of Manchester is we are like a melting pot of cultures. Like wherever you come from, you might, don't quote me on this, but you'll probably find a store that sells stuff from your home country, and it's just great to be in Manchester. I came here, I did not my undergrad here, so not a PhD, but I met people from so many different countries. I still meet all these PGRs from so many different countries and backgrounds, and it's such a fulfilling experience. So that's definitely one thing you can expect coming from another country, is that you get to, coming to Manchester specifically, is that you get to meet people from so many different backgrounds and that you never thought you'd meet before. You'd probably meet someone from a country you never heard of, that's what Manchester's like. So yeah, that's a really good question there. So obviously people are thinking a lot about the funding and the financing, and we did cover it a bit before as well, but Someone's asked about the need for a part-time job on top of the stipend. What would you say? Obviously, it depends on everyone's lifestyle, but would you say the stipend, you can be like kind of comfortable with it at least?
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely be quite comfortable with the stipend unless and until you have a very, I don't know, an expensive lifestyle. It's
Yeah.
quite comfortable. A lot of students who don't even do GTA or other part-time jobs are quite comfortable, so it shouldn't be a big deal. But you need to definitely have a good understanding of managing your finances, and you should have a very healthy spending habit. If you go down the rabbit hole, it's going to be a bit of a problem, but then everything else is quite fine.
Yeah, anything to add?
Yeah, I'd say it's quite manageable. I think if they want to increase it, I'm not mad. Not at all. But yeah, I don't think you need a part-time job depending on how you live, but there's GTA roles available if you are interested. Yeah, I think it's quite manageable.
Yeah, I agree with you. Same
Yeah, I think just one thing to add would
Yeah.
be that if you are on a student visa, being an international student, there's a restriction on the part-time hours. You can
Yes.
only work 20 hours a week. So even if you plan to do some part-time job, make sure you stick to the 20 hours per week.
Yeah,
If not, you get into
100%.
trouble.
Yeah, I mean, I came here as a student myself, and I was on that 20-hour restriction myself. And yeah, you make sure you stick to it because that does impact everything if you manage to go over. Even your employer might get in trouble if you end up working more than that. So yeah, from what I hear, it is you can be comfortable. I know the stipend, that amount doesn't seem that meaty, but you have to remember you don't pay tax on it like the rest of us have to. So yeah, don't worry too much about the stipend. I think it's good that you are thinking about it though. I think that already shows some the degree of financial responsibility that you are questioning whether it'll be enough. So yeah, that was the insight from our PGRs on that. So yeah, there's so many good questions. I guess, so someone's asked so are you all on fully funded projects? Yeah, so they've all nodded. Someone's asked, was it difficult to secure that funding? Did you guys find it difficult, or would you say it was straightforward? Was it very competitive? How would you describe that?
I think it was very competitive.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
It depends on the project. I think
Yeah.
mine came with, the project itself was funded, so
yes.
yeah, it just came together. So I didn't have to prepare for that separately.
Yeah.
So I had a different route. I essentially had the project that I wanted and had to apply for the funding. I don't know how competitive it was because honestly I didn't really ask, but I applied and then did my interview and then I got it. So I don't think that's a demonstration on how competitive it was.
I guess this is another one of those where it just depends on
Yeah.
everything. How many people have applied, how much funding there is, what the project is, everything, a lot of factors. So, but yeah, that was just some of the insight we had there. There was another one for international students. Oh yeah, the interview panel. How does it work? Was it online or offline, your interviews?
All my interviews were online.
Online?
Online.
Online. Okay, so I guess it will be online if you're international, unless you live in the UK.
Yeah, then you get a choice of
Yeah.
having a in-person.
Yeah, mine was online. So I had a
Okay.
Zoom. I only had the funding interview and that was all on Zoom.
Perfect. Yeah, okay. There is an option there of whether it'll be online or offline. Oh, this was the question I was looking for. There's a really good question here. What happens if a project fails or if it turns out to be not novel and we're too far down the journey? This is a bit of a loaded question, but I guess it's more like hypothetical.
So
I just found it really interesting. Someone
I'm
asked
not
this.
sure how it entirely works. So I guess there's things that you are supposed to do, like literature reviews and stuff that are supposed to, I guess, identify the research gap. And I guess in that case, then maybe you've been like scooped and someone has published your stuff,
Yeah.
the stuff that you've been working on before you. I'm not entirely sure how that goes. I guess you'd have to, in your thesis, talk about everything that you have done.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've not heard of that situation before.
It was someone's having a real existential crisis when they asked that question, to be honest. Yeah, Rahul, yeah, what do you have to say?
Yeah, I mean, I've been in that situation before.
Oh my God.
Well, not
Right
in my
here.
PhD, but in my master's.
Oh, amazing.
But yes, a part of my PhD was also published. So multiple. if something interesting is going on, for example, if there's a volcanic eruption, which I don't work on, but then if there's a volcanic eruption, there's going to be at least 100 groups throughout the world who's going to work on it, and someone's going to win the race. But you always find one thing which the other person hasn't done, and that becomes the novel aspect. So when people say PhD has to be a novel, it doesn't mean you have to discover something new. It just has to add maybe a paragraph or a page in, let's say, the existing encyclopedia of information. So if someone is having an existential crisis, rest assured that's not going to happen. You will always find one thing which you could do new. And when it comes to thesis, like she mentioned, if someone else manages to publish it before you, that's not a big deal. As long as you've shown you've made constant progress and you've worked towards what you've done, that shouldn't prevent you from getting a PhD. But publishing the work, that's going to be a little tricky unless and until you do something extra than what's already been published.
I guess I'll agree with you.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, no, that's a really good outlook on that question. But thank you for asking. We take risks here. We answer all your questions. So thank you for asking that one. Another really good one, which we kind of covered before, but we'll talk about it again. What are the major differences between MSc and PhD as a student in terms of study work? So are all of you from Masters to PGR? Masters to PhD? Yeah. So none of you did undergraduate directly.
So I did an
Integrated masters. Okay, that kind of stuff. Well, yeah, let's talk through all of it. Masters, how was that?
Okay.
How was it different? Yeah, talk about it.
Yeah, I also did kind of an integrated master's of sort. So my degree was called a BSMS dual degree, where you do, so in India, you have like 4 years or 3 years of bachelor's and then 2 years of master's. So I had a 5 years course, which was like 3 years of bachelor's plus 1 year of master's plus 1 year of like project and stuff, which is like an MPhil. So I had both like proper taught experience from my bachelor's and master's aspect of my course, as well as research experience from the research aspect of my course. So I feel I was well suited to come into a PhD. I had a bit of both, I guess.
Yeah, so I think the full course name was an Integrated Masters of Chemistry with a year of international study. And essentially it was 3 years of my bachelor's and then 1 year for my master's. And during my master's year is where I started my project with my current supervisor, and it's where I got my research experience. Plus I think the first semester was mostly the taught modules that I did, plus a little bit of the research experience, followed by the second semester being essentially majority research experience, which is where I made the decision that I'd do and continue my project.
Yeah, I think for masters is like 6 years of taught, and then the remaining 6 years is to write up the thesis, and also you have both undergrad experience and then teaching experience and then research experience, so you can dive straight into the PhD research work.
Very interesting.
Should we describe MPhil, MRes stuff?
Probably not, I think. So yeah, there are different types of master's degrees. So even the master's degrees differ from each other. So again, that's another question where it depends on what master's degree you did compared to a PhD. Like every journey is going to be different. But yeah, that was just some insight on that. We have another very good introspective kind of question. Someone asked, looking back, what do you wish you had known before you started your PhD at Manchester? You can take a moment to think, because there's a lot to think about, to be honest. But yeah, if there was one thing that you're like, oh, I wish I knew that. You have talked a bit about it before, like Melina, about knowing to talk about yourself in that interview, being confident. But yeah, is there anything that comes to mind?
Let's come back
to it. Yeah, no worries. That is a big question. But let's go for a straightforward one. Where to stay in Manchester? Someone's asked. Obviously, that's a very broad question, but I thought we could change it a bit and you could talk a bit more about your living, situation. Has it changed since you're doing your PhD? Where are you guys staying? Well, don't give the exact location, obviously, but is it private or what?
So for me, I think I'm staying in. It's like a student accommodation, but it's not university owned. Okay. So it's the expenses are quite moderate. They are good because it's bill included and all, and yeah, but it's good for students, I guess.
Yeah.
So nothing more.
Yeah, I'm in a private accommodation where I share with one person, my flatmate. I'd say it's okay. It's just, I think it's cheaper than student accommodation usually is, which is what I like about it, because I don't like spending too much money.
Fair enough.
Yeah. In my case, I'm also in a private student accommodation, which is not run by the university. I had 5 flatmates in my first year, 4 flatmates in my second year, 3rd flatmates in my 3rd year,
Yeah.
and now I have 1 flatmate.
Oh, they are dropping like
yeah,
flies.
it's been dropping every year. And I've been shifting houses every 2 years. I'm quite happy. But then it's usually you stay close to the university in a student accommodation, pay slightly more, or live in a private accommodation like a flat, an apartment, or in a house that you share with other people, live slightly far away from the university and pay a little less. So I think you just have to weigh your pros and cons. If you like staying close to the university like me, and you're happy paying a little extra, then it's good. If you want to save up, live a little far away, commute, and then again you're sorted, you save up on money.
Oh, very interesting. Yeah, I personally, I have an anecdote here as well, because after I graduated my bachelor's, I lived with a PhD student from this university. He was doing his PhD in astrophysics. Shout out to Kelvin if you're watching. I don't think he is. But we lived together, and yeah, we were in a house share. So it was an option. We just found it privately, on Spare Room. I think that was the site. And yeah, I literally just showed up when the landlord introduced me, and yeah, I met Kelvin, and I was like, this guy's funny. And yeah, we just lived, I think we lived with each other for 2 years, and yeah, it was a good setup. So yeah, there are a lot of options when it comes to living in Manchester. We lived in like a place called Longsight, which isn't too far away. But yeah, there's a lot of different suburbs and, mini suburbs in Greater Manchester area that you can live in. But yeah, just consider your options is the best way to go. Another question that's come through is the MSc, again about MSc, coming from an MSc. The MSc thesis comes with a lot of day-to-day supervision and support. How does one transition from that to research, independent research during PhD and in terms of training? So how have you found that? Was there a lot of support in your MSc from your supervisor and academic, and now is it completely different, or?
Well, again, it depends.
It
But
depends.
from my experience, I didn't have much supervision in my master's. I'm getting more supervision in my PhD than my
Wow,
master's.
amazing.
Which is not a good thing. It's quite toxic, but then, yeah, let's not get there. But assuming an ideal condition where you have a day-to-day supervision during your master's, the timeline just gets stretched. So you would have more of a weekly supervision during your PhD. So it's not like you're going unsupervised or you have to do independent research. It's like building towards doing an independent research rather than starting an independent research. Yes, of course, you have to do the hard work of, figuring out what people have done. Like the previous question we were trying to address, where you need to do your literature review to figure out what people have done in the field and what is something new that you could contribute. So your supervisor is not going to do that for you. But then when you're brainstorming ideas, your supervisor is always going to be there. And at each step, whenever you write something, let's say there's an abstract for a conference, you're making a poster, or you're writing your, like a paper or whatever. So your supervisor is always going to be there contributing in whatever ways they can. So, the only thing that I would say is the level of supervision might go down throughout your PhD. You might have a bit of hand-holding to start with, but then towards the end of your PhD, you're supposed to, sort of teach your supervisors rather than being taught by them,
Okay.
I guess. Yeah, so that would be a gradual progress rather than having to jump into something.
Yeah, so during my master's, I think I got my hand held quite a bit compared to my PhD. I guess because I stayed in the same group, I was like, my hand was held and then gradually let go. I would say it is quite different because I am now an independent researcher, so I get on with my stuff before, whereas in my master's, because there was a period of time in the first semester where I'd be in about twice a week in the lab, and a lot of the time, the person who was in charge of me would be like, okay, here's something I've prepared before. Now we'll do this and then do that. But now it's like I have to be the one preparing everything. So it was a bit like big cook, little cook at first, and then now be a chef.
Yeah, I think it's also the same thing. But I think during the first year of the PhD, you'd be supervised to, just like masters, you'd be supervised hand to hand. And as you go further, second year, third year, yeah, they'll let your hand go and you'll be independent.
Very interesting. By the way, I love that Big Cook, Little Cook. Shout out. I used to watch that show. Class. But yeah, we've got, still got questions to go through. Which one was I going to ask? Okay, this is actually a really good question. So this is from someone I assume is coming from an undergrad degree. So they're only doing the 3-year, I guess, degree, coming potentially maybe 4 years, but I think this person's coming from a 3-year undergrad. How to prepare for a PhD directly after an undergrad degree, as PhD is very heavily loaded with research and other important things. I guess quite important. But why don't you, I think how to ask you guys this question is, why don't you go back to your final year undergrad? Obviously you didn't integrate master's, so maybe go down that 3rd year. Do you think, how different would it be from your final year undergrad to PhD, that jump, without the master's bit in between?
So without the masters, I think, personally, I don't think my lab skills would have been up to scratch, but that's more specifically because in my final year, that's where I specialised. So that's where I got taught everything. So I think if you're a fast learner, you should be fine. Like the training that I got as a PhD student, I think was more than adequate than as someone who's coming from undergrad. But I guess it depends on the field and your experience and how quickly you learn.
Yeah, Victoria.
The major difference in undergrad is that you're taught, you're actually teaching you and you're learning, and then once you start your PhD, you're not teaching you like that. So you're the one doing your research, but you're supervised, but you're not being taught, and you're the one asking the questions, you're the one getting the answers to the questions. So like they're two different a bit, but you could cope. So far as you have that grounding in your undergrad. And then I think undergrad, you also do your project work in your final year. So it's something similar to that too.
Very interesting. Yeah, I would say, I guess, it definitely is an option. We do have quite a few people who do that undergrad to PGR jump. And I guess they're managing it well, because we wouldn't offer it if we didn't think you guys were capable. So the experts have come up with this, and I'd say just don't worry about it too much. But hopefully that has given you some insight on that. Just seeing what else. I think it's time to ask the dreaded question with the career word in it. Someone asked, how has your PhD experience helped shape your career plans? And what advice would you give to new PhD students?
Advice in this?
I guess like in terms of career planning while you're doing a PhD. How does it work?
So I try not to think about my career specifically, because I know that would change. Just because I know myself, and I said that I wouldn't do a PhD, but here I am. So I haven't pigeonholed myself into a specific career. I do try to have things that I do that will be nice on a CV. So just in case there's a certain skill that might even be quite niche, but having that just in case I want to do something would be nice. There are a few events where they do career-focused chats or fairs or anything and have representatives from different companies come through.
Yeah.
But I haven't thought specifically about mine because I think I have a bit of time.
Yeah.
Well, I'm supposed to be thinking about it and I'm not. So PhD has given me two sorts of training. One is the technical and subject training where I've learned a bit more about my subject. But also, there's been a series of transferable skills that I've acquired during my training. So now I have the wisdom that I can apply my transferable skills to some, non-subject specific careers as well. So as soon as I can, I'll start looking for a job, I guess.
Yeah, and I think talking about the transferable skills, and that in PhD helps you to know how to ask good questions, how to think, and how to, be dedicated to solving problems. So those can go in any career of your choice you want to future into.
Very, very useful. So I guess we have gone through a lot of questions. There is just one last one about Someone's asked, is UOM or University of Manchester multi-campus? Where are the labs located? So I can answer that because our university is just all in one campus. So we're a single campus university. The labs are located in like our different science and engineering buildings. Obviously, we've got the Nancy Rothwell building, which is home of engineering and science and engineering. And we've also got the Kilburn building, home of computer science, chemistry building, as you can imagine, chemistry, Schuster. We've got a lot of different buildings that have certain types of laboratories. So yeah, it kind of depends on which course you're on. Yeah,
I think we should highlight the Henry Royce.
Yes, of course, yeah.
So we've also got some state-of-art equipments in the Henry Royce building. So the Henry Royce group has around 7 to 8 campuses across UK, and Manchester is one of the big campuses that they have.
Very interesting. Yeah, that's useful. Another question that's come through just before we wrap up is, how are the work opportunities in Manchester? If you bring your partner, will he or she or they be able to find work easily? So obviously, if you have, it's okay if you haven't brought your partner with you or anything, but just in general, work opportunities, there are obviously a lot of opportunities available, but obviously the job market has its ups and downs, so it's not set in stone. Again, it depends on, you know, yourself and your partner and what kind of jobs they're looking at and things like that. But yeah, there is a lot of support available. I don't know necessarily if they'd be able to use, they probably wouldn't be able to use our university services, but even externally there are like agencies and job fairs. You know, the Manchester Trafford Centre, there's this big job fair that happens a couple of times a year where a lot of employers set up their stands and talk to people who are looking for employment. So yeah, there definitely is employment. Whether it's easy or not, that again depends on your partner's, you know, experience and stuff like that. But yeah, just to wrap up, there is one question I was saving for the end, which is quite heavy, to be honest. But it was someone's just asked four words. Is it worth it? Someone asked. How would you say right now? Would you say? I would assume hopefully yes, but.
I mean, I would say yes, because I think the experiences that I've gained and it's paid.
Yeah.
I'm seeing money, do you know what I mean? Yeah, and I think I do enjoy my project, I do enjoy my research. There's not really much else I think I would have done and would have enjoyed doing. So my answer currently is yes.
I'll take the bad route. I have 6 words. It is for you to decide.
Nice. Yeah, words. Victoria, what about you?
I'll also say yes, and yeah, it's also for you to decide. But yes, it's worth it. It's
Nice. Okay, so I guess that we've answered all the questions that have come through on Slido. If we haven't, you can still visit that link again either today or tomorrow, and we will answer the questions that haven't been answered. We also have a session tomorrow at 10 a.m. UK time, GMT, where we will be talking through the joint and dual awards that we offer. So between us and other countries like India, China, and Japan, we have our partner universities there where we do joint PhDs, so we'll be delving into that a bit more. But otherwise, I think that covers everything. So I'd like to thank our lovely PGRs for joining us today. Yeah, hopefully we see you guys as a PGR in the future. But thank you guys for sending all your questions in, and hopefully we've done a good job at answering them. But yeah, until next time, see you guys.